Good evening to you all. Very warm welcome to ETV News. I am Grum Tariku. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed dubs Ethio-Nigerian partnership a bond for the continental cooperation at large. The Ethiopian high-level delegation led by the Premier headed to Abuja, Nigeria today for a 2 days official visit. The delegation received a warm welcome by Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari. Abiy and Buhari exchanged views on bilateral and regional issues. Speaking at the event, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed said the partnership of Ethiopia and Nigeria is vital for the continental cooperation at large. Meanwhile, Abiy has extended best wishes to all Africans on the celebration of Africa Day. Africa Day is observed annually on the 25th of May to commemorate the founding of the Organization of the African Unity, OAU, established on the 25th of May, 1963. The Ethiopian government is conducting a thorough assessment of the ongoing security operation throughout the country. Attended by Army Chief of Staff Field Marshal Birhanu Jula and Deputy Chief of Staff Abebaw Taddese, as well as regional security heads and other defense officials. The meeting evaluated activities done so far and set future directions. It is to be recalled that in accordance with the decision of the National Security Council, the rule of law in Ethiopia has been taken into account to ensure internal peace, which is creating a favorable environment for foreign enemies. The Council said at a time that it seeks to bring various armed forces with different political interests into the legal framework. Meanwhile, Amhara Regional State Communication Bureau head Gizacho Muluna disclosed that the state is working to arrest lawlessness, a phenomenon prevalent particularly after the invasion by the terrorist TPLF. Speaking on the ongoing law enforcement operation in the state, he said legal measures have been taken against individuals suspected of fanning ethnic flames under the guise of freedom of expression. Some of the lately arrested activists and individuals also include those suspected of dissemination of fake news. Saying that the arrests are far from arbitrary, Gizacho went on to deny that the campaign has nothing to do with disarming the Fano. The Eid to Eid program aimed to welcome Ethiopian Muslim diaspora community has officially ended today. On the closing ceremony, different government officials and scholars called upon the diaspora to strengthen their role in the public diplomacy. Johannes Van Town has the details.
The Ethiopian diaspora community played an unprecedented role during Ethiopia's those times in the diplomatic arena. Much easier to be done in defending of their country as pressures are still looming. It is reported that members of the diaspora who came to the country after accepting the invitation from the Ethiopian government have worked a lot during their stay in the country.
Politically, it was intended to show solidarity among Ethiopians. At the same time, to make, it was intended at the same time to make the diasporas the capacity of the Ethiopian diplomacy, especially with regard to the diaspora public diplomacy movements that we have seen in No More and with the Great Ethiopian Renaissance Dam and etc. Okay, therefore, in strengthening this solidarity and diaspora public diplomacy, it has its own opportunity.
It is to be recalled that Ethiopians living in the Middle East and various Arab countries have been working tirelessly to inform the governments and peoples of the Arab world in which they live that their country has a right to use its natural resources.
Now we have a good relationship with United Arab Emirates and Ethiopia. In this relationship, our communities, our diasporas in Dubai, they are playing different roles, especially by giving the fact that Ethiopia doing on Nile Dam. Again, we are supporting in increasing the remittance for economic growth. Some Arab media, they are giving wrong information about Ethiopia for their societies. So we are doing to smooth this, to make these relations clear and to let them to know the fact about the Ethiopia.
Young Ethiopians born overseas pledged to stand by their country in an organized manner in the future.
These are changing times. So we are in a junction point where we have to change our opinions as well towards everything. We have to change our attitude concerning the situation that our country is at right now. So we have to be more aware of how our country is going, like on what road our country is going through, first of all. The second thing is we have to do whatever we can to raise an awareness for not only for Ethiopia, but to the neighboring countries as well, because we are in a very strategic spot in Africa.
The diaspora community has grown bigger and larger than it was in previous years, and it has a voice now, you know. So I feel like instead of being reactive, if we become proactive to solve these problems and try to make a strategic plan in creating a solution for these permanent problems. I mean, creating permanent solutions for these problems. I feel like that's what we need to focus on.
At the closing ceremony, it was stated that the Arabic language and the media should be well integrated in order to entertain Ethiopian truths for the Arab world.
KTV English will bring you fresh stories on the diplomatic arena.
The OAU was founded in May 1963 in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, by 32 African states with the aim of bringing the African nations together and resolve the issues within the continent. Ethiopia played an unprecedented role to make that happen, and of course is doing a great job for maintaining it. When one can see the months in history, it was a month that African countries were highly committed to unite the continent and ensure African independence from any sort of colonization. Kasaun Chani has more on that.
In May 1963, 32 heads of independent African states met in Addis Ababa to sign the Charter, creating Africa's first post-independence continental institution, the Organization of African Unity, OAU. Ethiopia played an unprecedented role to make that happen, and of course is doing a great job for maintaining it. The OAU was the manifestation of the Pan-African vision for one Africa that was united, free, and in control of its own destiny, and this was solemnized in the OAU Charter, in which the founding fathers recognized that freedom, equality, justice, and dignity were essential objectives for the achievement of the legitimate aspirations of the African people. When one can see the day in history, it was a day that African countries were highly committed to unite the continent in unison with regard to the African independence from any sort of colonization. Ethiopia's Emperor Haile Selassie I played a very important role in the establishment of the Organization of African Unity in 1963.
I have lived too long to cherish many illusions about the essential high-mindedness of men when brought into stark confrontation with the issue of control over their security and their property interests. Not even now, when so much is at stake, would many nations willingly entrust their destinies to other hands. Yet, this is the ultimatum presented to us. Secure the conditions whereby men.
However, the process was not easy. There were groups that were named as Casablanca and Monrovia, with Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana and Leopold Sédar Senghor respectively. Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, the first Prime Minister and latter President of Ghana, was the leader of the first sub-Saharan African nation to gain its independence. He subsequently became a leading figure in the campaign for the United States of Africa. He advocated for Pan-Africanism and played a leading role in the establishment of the OAU in 1963 in Addis Ababa.
This decade is the decade of African independence. Forward then to independence. To independence now. Tomorrow, the United States of Africa.
Ethiopia's stance remains unchanged even today. The country is continuously hosting such continental events to fortify the spirit of Pan-Africanism.
Africa has gone through a lot, and now since 1963, when the Organization of African Unity was formed on the 25th of May 1963, when all the great leaders like Emperor Haile Selassie, like Jomo Kenyatta, Kwame Nkrumah, Julius Nyerere, and some of the great leaders who have now passed on, left with us a very, very important legacy. And it's for the youth of Africa today to continue to build on that legacy and to make sure that Africa remains united.
The main objectives of the OAU were to rid the continent of the remaining vestige of colonization and apartheid, to promote unity and solidarity amongst African states, to coordinate and intensify cooperation for development, to safeguard the sovereignty and territorial integrity of member states, and to promote international cooperation.
Ethiopia calls upon African youth to equip themselves with knowledge and dedicate themselves to the unity and prosperity of the continent. The African youth generation are encouraged to take lessons from the victory of Adwa to help extricate the continent from the quagmires of poverty. The remarks came during the opening session of Pan-African Youth Summit, kicked off here in Addis Ababa today. Santayo Tambra reports.
Minister of Women and Social Ethiopia has launched today a maiden Pan-African Youth Summit under the theme Building on Pan-African Ties and Promoting Indigenous Knowledge in Africa. Addressing the session, Ethiopian Minister of Women and Social Affairs highlighted the importance of the summit to mitigate the multifaceted problems the African continent is struggling with.
Pan-African movement is found to be essential to inspire the current and future generation to serve and vanguard for a united and prosperous Africa. Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, establishing a system for Pan-African Youth Summit might be a very important step to mitigate the multifaceted youth problems in Africa. This may contribute in creating appropriate working environment to link and develop the African history and culture for the mutual benefit.
The African youth generation are suggested to take lessons from the victory of Adwa to help extricate the continent from the quagmires of poverty.
Pan-African movement was dedicated to establishing independence for African nations and instrumental to cultivating unity among Black people throughout the world. As the history reveals, contribution of Ethiopia is significant in the realization of Pan-Africanism. At this stage, it suffices to bring the victory of Adwa into the attention of Africans, since it was the first victory for African nations and all Black people against colonialism. The victory had elevated the psychological makeup of Africans and Black people everywhere.
Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Demeke Mekonnen, for his part, called upon African youth population to equip themselves with knowledge and dedicate themselves to the unity and prosperity of the continent.
My third message to you is to be optimistic and seize opportunities coming your why. For that, you need to equip yourself with knowledge, nurture yourselves with the best that you can get from your environment, society, your country, your continent, and the world at large. I'm confident that you will dedicate your life for the unity and integration of our country.
Demeke further urged Africa's young population to liberate Africa from poverty.
Practical lessons learned and wisdom gained from the struggle of our forefathers are valuable for the future of our continent. Our forefathers fought for independence, for freedom, and liberation of our continent. We just need to learn from this sacrifice. You are now called upon to contribute to the second liberation of Africa, the liberation of African from poverty and underdevelopment. You are the promise of Africa.
The first ever Pan-African Youth Summit is said pivotal for the continent's future because it has brought together the youth, policymakers, and political leaders from across the continent.
In a related development, while Africa is the richest continent, its people are suffering from poverty, and this Pan-African Youth Summit Ethiopia initiated is decisive to awaken the youth and solve continental problems. Acting in unison like Ethiopia did to drive colonial powers off their country is key, according to participants of the summit. Take a look.
I was also glad to see like Pan-African Youth Summit. It's pretty much the initiative that awakening youth to be like, okay, Pan-Africanism is not just the ideology, and it's not just things that we believe in, but it's things that we should be. You know, instead of showing love, I have to become love. Instead of showing change, I have to be the change that Africa needs, right? So it's really important because here is the place where we remind ourselves who we are as an Africans and what we should do to develop our continent.
This will be a very, very crucial event because we'll be having a chance to connect a lot of young people, and also as the section which is started, they show how young people are the power of Africa. So we'll be discussing a lot of issues about development, how young people could use their potential ideas and innovations to build the Africa. And again, it is a good way to connect with other young people from different countries. So I hope together we can.
For every young person, there's a voice inside him or her that have the potential to change Africa. So the youths have to discover who they are. Like they have to ask who we are as an Africa, where we are as a continent, how we got where we are, and also the current problem that we are facing as a continent. So they can be the solution for the problem, and they can change the problem into opportunity. So that can be the way, and those users have to discover themselves and express themselves as an Africa.
This Pan-African Youth Summit is very significant for young people because it's going to reawaken or awaken the spirit of Pan-Africanism in young people. You know,
this summit is very important. We have to understand that the concept of Pan-Africanism needs to be inoculated with this generation. If you take our forefathers before 100 years ago, maybe like 80 years ago, they were amazing. They tried their best to make this continent a better place to live. But this generation is not doing the same thing that they did before.
I think it's a time for young African to wake up. Because back in the days when you're talking about Pan-Africanism, you talk about old generation, like those old people like Haile Selassie, you know, Kambarage Nyerere, Kwame Nkrumah, right, fought for independence of Africa. But these days, I think it's the time for Africans to take a lead, young Africans. So it's my call upon all, you know, young Africans to realize that what is the meaning of peace. Like when you have peace, it means you're going to live in your own house freely. You're not going to need to migrate to another country, right? You're not going to need to run from here and there scared of your safety, but you'll be able to settle with your family, do whatever you want to do peacefully. That's the meaning of peace, and we need that in Africa to develop ourselves.
Young people, as we started, could be the one who bring like positive impact, because we should be building peace everywhere, at school, at the work, everywhere we are. We should be motivating others to join peace building movements, and also as you mentioned, when we are peaceful, it is very easier to develop.
We can take as a model the Adwa victory as a model for the Africa unity. So it was there was different people, they come together and they do what they planned to do. So that happened because of collaboration and unity. So the users have to learn from that victory, and that is then so that is the way how we can change the problems into unity. So because unity is the strongest, when there is a teamwork and collaboration, wonderful things can be achieved. And when everyone is included, everyone can win. So let us be unite and collaborate and solve the problem that we are facing as a continent.
For how long my people are living in a scarcity of different problems, electricity, lack of food and something like that, and then water and then medical care, how long? Look at the Europeans, how they're living. Forget it, okay? So it was all our mistake. It was all our just, the mindset that we had for some years. But now it's the time for African users to bring some kind of, change, a real change, which stands for its own people, for the generations to come.
Welcome back, and you are watching ETV News. Plan and Development Minister Fitsum Assefa discussed with a delegation of Norway's Climate and Environment Ministry on climate change issues. Fitsum briefed the delegation on government's directives that would serve as an input for the preparation of the second strategic plan underway in light of support the Nigerian government is providing to Ethiopia. Fitsum reiterated government's commitment to continue building climate change resilient economy. Head of the delegation Hans Bratskar, for his part, said that Ethiopia is the leading beneficiary of Norway's support for African nations in investment and climate change adaptation sectors. Norway is committed to continue supporting Ethiopia in forestry and sustainable development areas, he said. The two further agreed to work in collaboration in environment and climate change policy matters. The United Nations Migration Agency announced a plan to transfer at least 6,750 Ethiopian migrants from war-torn Yemen to Ethiopia in the coming months. According to African News, the agency appealed for $7.5 million to assist their return. The International Organization for Migration said it has transferred more than 600 migrants, including 60 unaccompanied children, to Ethiopia on 3 flights so far this year. More flights were planned between Yemen's southern port city of Aden and Addis Ababa. It added, migrants transiting through or stranded in Yemen are some of those most affected by the deteriorating humanitarian situation in the country. Krista Rothsteyer, IOM's chief of mission in Yemen, said. Yemen's civil war has not prevented migrants from entering the country, desperate to make their way to neighboring Saudi Arabia, looking for jobs. Last year, around 27,700 migrants embarked on a journey from the Horn of Africa to Yemen. According to IOM, Yemen has been engulfed in civil war since 2014, when the Iranian-backed Houthi rebels took the capital Sana'a and much of the northern Yemen, forcing the international recognized government to flee to Aden than to exile in Saudi Arabia. A Saudi-led coalition entered the war the following year on behalf of the internationally recognized Yemeni government to try to restore its power. Experts suggest the government to subsidize products and alleviate the skyrocketing inflation, thereby meeting the soaring market demand in the country. Development economist Daraja Dajani told ETV that continuous revision of economic policy is mandatory to make that happen. The Sarnisa has the following account.
Talking to ETV, development economist Daraja Dajani suggested product subsidization and alleviating the skyrocketing inflation rate to meet the soaring market demand in the country. Daraja also added that the government has to invest more on the agriculture sector.
Government has to invest. I think in early days, most of the foreign borrowing used to be used for importing merchandise, like 40%, and it's less than 4% used for agriculture. I think that process has to change now. Government has to invest like maybe 40% for agriculture or more. By doing so, I think we can enhance the productivity of the agricultural sector, then make agricultural products widely available in the nation. And as the Prime Minister said 2 or 3 months ago, Ethiopia can't even, it's a net exporter like other countries. Malawi did that within 3 years. Mozambique did that. And from being a food aid recipient and a net exporter, they become net exporter.
The economist stated that the continuous revision of economic policy is mandatory.
The issue is now, we have to keep on moving at a fast rate so that we can satisfy the national aggregate demand. For that one, as I said earlier, investing in the culture is one thing. Then have to localize, has to mobilize local resources through, like, I don't know what's now being started through the stock market and through foreign direct investment, and investing in the productive sector means in manufacturing and in the industry and also mining sector as well. So in doing so, we can increase our foreign earnings, which is partly the cause for inflation, and at the same time creates more jobs and in the income for the society.
He further expressed that mobilizing investment from stock market is good, but he added that on Ethiopia's economy case, it should be brought up gradually.
Mobilizing local investment from the residents through the stock market is one and a good way for many African countries. Now, the same, for instance, take Tanzania. Now they have to stock market in Lusaka and Dar es Salaam, and the Lusaka one is performing the best. Malawi also they do have performing the best. Of course, Kenya and Uganda is slower. Rwanda is modest. The Egypt stock market is doing good. Ghana stock market is one of the excellent in Africa, because we have like 29 African countries which have a stock exchange. In our case, we have to bring it up gradually, because people have to get to know to it and how understand the system, and then have to get protected so that their properties won't lose in the middle of nowhere.
Well, next up is Forex update. Let's have a look. In sports news, Addis Ababa residents approached by ETV said the 2022 FIFA World Cup trophy tour creates hope and excitement. The trophy has been officially displayed to people today at Mescal Square. Haptam Washagre compiles the following report.
The winner to organize the 2022 FIFA World Cup is Qatar.
The Road to Qatar 2022 project has started in 2019, with more than 50 trusts considered possible candidates and going through preparations to hold the tournament. Due to COVID-19 pandemic, the preparation was not easy, as in-presence activities were suspended for a long period. It is scheduled to take place in Qatar from 21st November